Hi friends, I'm on a plane going to Korea and then from there going to New Zealand, but I wanted to keep my word and give my testimony, which I had promised to do before Shabbat. And so here's what happened to me. Was I grew up in New York City, Jewish, the world's largest synagogue, but never had any encouragement that it was possible to hear the voice of God. Never had any opportunity to experience a miracle or know for sure that God was real and that He's for us today. I met some Christians who talked about Jesus and talked about the cross, but it didn't make any sense to me. Then what happened was in May 1976, my stepfather, who brought me up as a child, Emil Ronig, he had a heart attack. And he was in New York, I was in Arizona. And when he had his heart attack, I actually felt the heart attack. And sure, and that's very difficult to explain, of course. But it was because the Spirit of God allowed me to feel that. And after 2 days and 2 nights of not being able to sleep or eat, there was one of my... I owned a chain of health spas with 3 other guys back then. I was the junior partner. And one of my employees was saying to me, why don't you call New York and find out if your father had a heart attack since you keep having that thought? So I called New York, and while I was waiting for somebody to answer the phone, I heard very clearly in my mind God speaking for the first time in my life. And He said, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're not going crazy. It's me talking to you. Your father did have a heart attack 2 nights ago. At 5 minutes after 10 at night, he's going to have a second heart attack today and die. But if you fly to New York and pray for him, I'll heal him. And long story short, my brother got on the phone and confirmed all of that God had spoken to me. And when he asked me, how did you get this information? I told him that God spoke to me. Of course, he just laughed because I was such a playboy and unbelieving in God and talking so many people out of their faith. So I was the last one he would expect to have something like that happen. And, well, for me too. But I went to New York, and when I got to the hospital, the chief doctor told me I came too late. My father had already had a second heart attack, and both lungs had collapsed. And, one of his lungs had collapsed, and 3/4 of his heart had collapsed. And so they couldn't give him a new heart because his lung had also collapsed. Well, I went into a room alone for about 3.5 hours, just crying out to God, God, if you're real. Because remember, I didn't know anything. Even though I grew up in the synagogue, I didn't know anything about the character of God, about talking to God, about miracles, healings. None of that. We just got Bible stories when I grew up and were taught to be good people. But what happened was I cried out to God, if this is real, please save my father's life and you can kill me. I'm such a selfish, self-centered guy and immoral. And my dad is a hero. I mean, he adopted 2 kids that weren't his own and so generous and kind. And, Toya and Andre, I see you guys. But I better keep going because I have to turn this off in 2 minutes. And so, after this 2.5, 3.5 hours alone with God and this purging, asking forgiveness for everything, I said, please, kill me and let him live. Or if you're a God of love, like the Christians always go on about, then please heal my father and I'll do the worst thing I could think of in life. I'll become a rabbi or a monk or a priest. And you know what happened? I had faith flood my heart. And I knew my father was going to be okay. It was so strange for me. And I went and I gave him a kiss. And remember, he was in a coma. And I squeezed his hand. He squeezed my hand back. 20 minutes later, he was fully 100% restored. And his heart was healed. His lung was healed. And there's no human explanation. They kept him for 6 days of observation and let him go. Well, I have to finish now. But I just want to tell you that when I finally did hear the gospel and I asked God for a sign on my own body, He said to me very clearly again, He spoke, He said, what sign would you require, my son? And I said something like leprosy. He said, look at your hands. And He had leprosy on my hands. And Dr. Paul James Williamson was there when this happened. And I was just in Phoenix a few months ago, and he was on the Facebook Live with me just confirming this whole thing. Well, I've got to turn off the phone. It's very nice. Somebody paid for me to travel business class. I almost never do. Got to turn the phone off now. So I'll say goodbye, and no translation to Swedish tonight. Bless you. I'll talk to you tomorrow from Korea. Bye.